Welcome to Lattes Art, the podcast where we dive into the creative world, one sip at a time. I'm your host, James William Moore, curator, artist, and your guide through conversations with some of the most compelling voices in the arts. Today, we have a very special guest, award-winning filmmaker Summer Shelton. From growing up on a sheep farm in North Carolina to making a name for herself in independent cinema, Summer's journey is one of resilience, creativity, and passion. She's worked alongside celebrated filmmakers, won the Independent Spirit Producers Award, and has navigated the ever-changing landscape of indie filmmaking. In this episode, we'll discuss her latest project, You and I, a micro-budget feature film that explores love, intimacy, and human connection. We'll also talk about the realities of filmmaking, balancing artistic vision with industry challenges, the impact of mentorship, and what it takes to bring a story to life on screen. So grab your favorite latte, settle in, and let's get into it. On today's episode, we have the joy of getting to talk to Summer Shelton and hearing about her journey from a rural town to having this movie that's been released. So, Summer, thank you so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, just for those that may not know you, could you do a little bit of an introduction?
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Summer Shelton. I am a native of North Carolina, which is where I am speaking from today. I grew up in a very small town outside of a more famous small town known as Mayberry, like the Andy Griffith Show. But I grew up in a little community called Westfield. So I would always have to tell people Mayberry as a city reference, if that gives you any perspective of like where I'm from. If I speak of Mayberry like it's New York City. But I lived here most of my life and went to college here and, kind of got my first exposure to, the arts and filmmaking. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I moved to New York, learned how to actually kind of make movies, and then I kind of built my career there as a producer, working kind of through the trenches, behind the scenes in offices and on sets, and learning everything soup to nuts about how to physically make a movie. And then I moved back to the South, and I guess I would say maybe like a third life crisis. I feel like I've had one at different decades in my life, but I think there was a little life crisis at 26 to leave a career in education to go to film school, and then in mid 30s another one to leave New York and come back home, and then another one to make a movie. So I think I'm going to stop calling these crises and just calling these impetuses for new chapters.
Well, and it's interesting because I grew up in a rural town north of San Francisco. And so I
hmm
kind of relate that,
hmm
there's something that draws you beyond that. And for you, it was the
hmm
arts.
Yeah.
How did you discover it when you were in that town?
hmm
Were you going to the movies? Was there films being made there?
I would rent movies at a gas station. That we had a gas station here that we would get our soda and nabs, and there would be a small selection of VHS movies in the back, and I cycled my way through those. Finally, when I was in high school, or maybe even, yeah, no, maybe even college, and when I'd come home, Blockbuster was the big thing. And so they used to have that deal, you could buy two, get one free, or buy three, get one free, whatever it was. I would always I would spend hour or two combing through the movies, doing the math to decide with how much money I had, which ones I could get. And so I really just started as an avid watcher of films, but also too mainstream movies and things. I didn't know what art house cinema was. I didn't know, when someone would say the great big movies to me, I would think of the big movies like Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music, the Ten Commandments, all those that are on regular holiday rotation at some point in your Southern life. But then too, as a child, I go to church every Sunday. There's a choir, sing music, you sing. My father likes music a lot. I took piano lessons as a child. Like any other Southern mother, my mom put me in pageants and I had to have a talent. So I would sing and dance and, so I just was exposed to these things, but wouldn't say that like I really had a connection to them in any way where I thought I could make a living doing these things because I never really knew any artist. I
Isn't
knew
that
people that were artistic, like all the people in the church choir were amazing singers and some of the best songs and hymns and things I've heard, but I don't know that they went home and like watched Bergman or anything.
And it's interesting because for me, I remember it was such a big deal. We had the art train that the National Endowment of the Arts had sent across the
Whoa.
US, and it came to my town. And so I
Oh,
was getting
cool.
to see these masters and this incredible artwork that I had always was drawn to. But when you're in a town like that, you don't know where that exists, do you?
Mm-mm. No. I mean, I got lucky, like, we'd have some school field trips, and my parents were extremely generous that they let me in high school, do one of those overseas trips with the school. And so that was, I got a passport. I got on a plane for the first time, like big deal. And I went with a school group to Europe. And looking back, I sometimes wonder if maybe that was a little place where I started to see, like, oh, not only is this a different part of the world, but this is like a different world than where I grew up. There's like, I grew up on a farm and we go like to the beach, and okay, that was strange enough, that big water and that sand, like that was like different planet from me on my rural farm. But to like go overseas to Europe and see a whole different way of people living, a walking culture, rail, to ride the train from one city to another or another country, be on an overnight train, just these big experiences. I was like, whoa, this is not only interesting, but also I liked it. It was exciting to me just to mainly see so much history and to like see like, oh, this is all the things that I've read about in books or I've seen pictures because I love to go to the library as a kid and they would only let you go into like one section of the library until you got big enough to go into the big section. And I always like to sneak in the big section because that's where the travel books were. And that was my favorite because they had silky pages and a really nice hardback with beautiful pictures. And so I would sneak to the travel section and look at all the books about places in the world. So it's more about like scenery and things that kind of drew me to wanting to explore things outside of the small town that I grew up in.
Well, and when you made it to New York, that had to feel like being in a foreign land since it's
Yeah.
so different from every, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because the first time I went to New York, I was I was in college and I made a deal with my parents that I would graduate college a year early if they would let me do a summer internship in New York. Because when I did the math, it was practically about like the same amount of money to like put me up for a summer in New York was like a whole year of college. I did that and I got an internship at VH1. I did not know a soul there. I knew like one human, which was an alumni of the college who was the nicest woman. I'll shout out to Christine Rodacher. So nice to welcome me, like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, not knowing anything, welcomed me and was just so kind and generous. And I'll never forget that hospitality that I got an internship there. But when I was in New York, I was so scared. I found a place to stay within walking distance, and I would only go places that I could walk. I think I might have ridden the subway maybe like 1 to 5 times, and I would only ride it on Saturdays during what I would call like safe hour to me, which was like during the day when I know I would go place where other tourists would go. So anywhere I knew there would be a lot of people, I would feel a little bit safe. So I would go down to the seaport and go visit the Statue of Liberty. I would go to Broadway. I went to a lot of Broadway plays because that theater's full. So there's people in there and they're going there for a reason. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch a show, and then I'm going to walk home. So this was like my entertainment. I pretty much now looking back, I only like circulated between Herald Square and Times Square, which now like when I returned to New York as, in my 20s, I lived in Brooklyn for like 10 years, lived in Greenpoint. I had this like pretentious saying that like, you'll never find me above 21st Street type of mentality. I soon turned into one of those. It's like, oh, I avoid 21st to like 70th between, you know, 6th and 8th unless I'm going to a show. That snotty language that, kids sometimes say. I was one of those for a while. But it is interesting to think about when I first went to New York with my gingham halter dresses and, Southern attire at age like I was 20. I think I was 19, 20 years old by myself. Then move up there 7 years later and become like, I consider myself like a New Yorker. Like I lived there for 10 years.
Well, yeah,
Consider it
you
a
were
huge
immersed
part of my
into it.
life. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
huge part of my life. I love it. It's an amazing place, but I went there at such different times. So
Well,
it's strange.
yeah. Well, and when we look back, right, we have the nostalgia of those times and
hmm
we can see
hmm
how it influenced us
hmm
of how we see it and how our opinions
hmm
change of it.
hmm
But
hmm
when you went back up there, you got into film production, didn't you?
I did. That's the reason why I went up there is like at age 26, I went to film school for 1 year. Like I'd been a high school teacher for like 4 years in my early 20s, and I got my master's degree. I'd go to school at night. And then after I did all that, I pretty much got what I called my safety net. I started a teaching career and I got a master's degree. I thought, all right, I've checked the boxes that like normal humans do to like make their future somewhat secure. Now I want to go to film school and try it because I did do some acting in college and a little bit of theater, but I want to see what it's like to make movies. So we have an amazing film school here in North Carolina called the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. I went there for 1 year and I got lucky that, I was the old kid there and a filmmaker came to Winston-Salem, which is where he was from, to make his third movie called Goodbye Solo, Ramin Barani, and he needed a right hand. And my Wake Forest recommended me where I went to grad school and the School of the Arts. And he then became my film school because I didn't return to film school anymore. I quit and worked with him and we made Goodbye Solo. And I learned that was my first foray into the film industry. And then I moved to New York and continued working with him while I would also get jobs on other independent films, climbing the ranks. So I'd learn The Office, then set, and just migrate my way up to learning how to be a capital P producer after about 7 years in of like learning all the behind the scenes stuff and getting my feet wet and, doing everything from running offices to driving cube trucks in New York. You learn like, all right, you can do anything.
I love how you called it your backup plan. That,
Yeah.
and
hmm
that
hmm
sounds so much like an artist. We
Yeah.
tend to be, what's our backup just in case this doesn't work? And I love
Oh,
that
yeah.
you called it that, but then you have this opportunity. You're going through school and suddenly you
hmm
leap out of school and you're in
hmm
the industry. Sometimes that's the right move for people, isn't it?
I think so. I'm glad that I had that period between like age 20 to 26 where I taught high school. I was the youngest like teacher in like the little English department there in our small school. But it was like a real job and I had real responsibility and I had these students. And as much as I was teaching them about what do you want to do in the next chapter of your life, and I had done some traveling and things, and I had encouraged them to get out and explore because, again, this was in small town. I was teaching in my hometown. And I remember one class I showed the 400 Blows, and it was the first foreign film that some of those students had ever seen. It was beautiful because they loved it. And they're like, Miss Shelton, I got used to reading. It's fine. I'm like, yeah. It's like this movie's a lot like how I feel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just like touched me. So I'm glad that I had that experience in my early 20s. As much as I was giving the advice to those students to go out and do something, it also gave me kind of like a hard look at my own life to be like, okay, Summer, what do you want to do? What do you want to pursue? Because I'd always loved teaching. I mean, my favorite toy as a child was a Mickey Mouse chalkboard, my favorite toy. And I'd play school every day, teaching my dolls and Barbies. So I just naturally always thought I'd be a teacher, and I still am. It's not necessarily my backup plan. It's like my second career alongside being a filmmaker. So I still do it. But I just felt like I've been through a lot of things during that time period with my family and losing people and things. And I just saw how precious life was. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to give this to myself. I'm just going to go to film school for 1 year and see what happens. And everything happened that year. I think when you give yourself that opportunity to try it, things will happen if you give it to yourself and earnestly. Like, just give it to yourself that chance. And that's what spearheaded my whole trajectory for the next 15 years and even to today.
What a great gift to give to yourself. That's just incredible.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now,
you have to give it to yourself. No one else will.
well, ain't that the truth? Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
Hmm.
So you've really climbed up through the ranks in
Yeah.
filmmaking,
Hmm.
specifically in the independent
Hmm.
area, correct?
Oh yeah. Yep.
There are a few organizations that you've probably worked with, right?
Hmm.
Sundance
Hmm.
and Gotham and
Hmm.
a few others.
Yeah.
How instrumental are they to the career development?
I mean, to me, they're priceless and they still are. It's not like they're instrumental at one part of my career. It's just like long standing. I mean, those are things that like live with you throughout your career, not just like on paper to like, look fancy on your CV and make your bio look beautiful, but it's also the relationships and people that you meet is just forever. And that's what's even more life-changing. The Sundance Creative Producing Fellow was kind of like the first big thing that ever happened to me in my career. And I say that by like me as an individual. I'd been very fortunate that I was blessed to work with very talented directors who made beautiful films that went to super fancy festivals and did wonderful things and got to see what that's like. But these were the first times that I felt someone thought that what I had to do was worthy of endorsing. It does mean something, especially I came into this industry at it like from a dirt road, just deciding on my own. Every contact I've built along the way are people that I've met. I didn't like grow up around this industry or people. So I've had to cultivate all relationships and things. And so these organizations kind of opening up their arms and saying, okay, let's give you a hug now, Summer. That's what's really special and wonderful. It is like a vote of confidence that I think sometimes we as artists, especially as filmmakers, and even more so as producers, I would say even more than other fields, don't often get. These organizations come to you and be like, how can we help you? What's your next goal? How can we help you get there? And so Sundance was really pivotal with that. And so was Film Independent and the Gotham, very instrumental. I'm definitely not oblivious to the fact that some phone calls that I get are probably because I have been a part of those organizations and have those awards. And certain emails get answered because I can put those things in my bio. I'll never take that for granted. And I'm also very proud of it. I like to give back and I try to like pay it forward. If I can have a conversation with an emerging filmmaker or rural filmmaker to give them a little vote of confidence, I'll happily do it.
One of the things that, we are in award season right now
Mhm.
and film festivals, and those of us that are on the outside see the
Yeah.
glamour. We see the red carpet, we see the over the top gowns, we see all of that
Yeah.
stuff. What is that festival really like for someone who is in the industry that's going
Mhm.
in and having their movie, their film viewed by this audience? What's that feel like?
I have different feelings having been as a producer and different feelings most recently going through as a writer, director, actress type person. As a producer, you're very elated, obviously. You know that a filmmaker on your team, everyone dreams of having a big festival premiere of some sort. Anyone that tells you that they don't, I just don't believe them. As much as it is thrilling as a producer, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be honest with you, because you feel like it's such a precious moment in time that you don't want to squander it in any way. And by that, you mean like you want to know who all's going to be there, how many of those people can you meet, how many movies can you watch? Like, you really just want to pack as much into your life as you can in those 7 days or 5 days or however many days it's there because that's almost like filling up your gas tank, not just for another year, but it could be for like your career, because these are like big moments where you're able to be around like-minded people. Also, it's exciting to go to feel a part of a community. And I think that that's something that often as filmmakers and artists, we don't have a chance to do, is be amongst our community a lot. Maybe pending where you live, New York and LA, maybe Chicago, maybe a little bit easier, but in certain rural areas where I am, community's much different. Not a lot of people even know what I do for a living or know what it even means. And that's okay. But it's nice to every once in a while go where you can have like-minded conversations and people know not just how much you have struggled to get where you are, but also be there to celebrate with each other. So it's very meaningful. It is, like, to me as an artist. I know to other people it might be a great business transaction and things, but to me it's fueling for the soul to go, and you feel just less alone.
Well, and it's community. It's the
Absolutely.
artistic idea of community. We come together, we support one
Hmm.
another. We are there to cheer us
Hmm.
all on. Now, you work in the independent filmmaking realm.
Yeah.
Not the easiest area because budgets aren't the same for
No.
like a Marvel movie, are they?
No. I think that my entire budget is probably, like, I would say probably less than their crafty budget for snack. I've worked on films that most of the movies I've worked on has been anywhere from like micro budget, which is anywhere around like 200 to 500,000, under a million, somewhere in that space has been a lot of the films and stuff that I've done. But I've had I've been able to dip my toe in a higher budget, like upwards of 5 million is like as high as like I've been able to be on a set of, is something that big. But the films that I make are genuinely, they cost less, but I don't think that they're any less valuable. And I think that if anything, there's a lot of creativity, passion, thoughtfulness, a lot of risks that you can take when you don't have so much baggage to have to deal with. And that's what I like about working in an independent space, is that you can be a little more free, not just like you have to do things for free. Like find locations. I just mean like too, like mentally there's a kind of freedom to be like, you know what, that's not my world, like we don't have trailers on my movie. Like no, it's just
Yeah.
like we don't have. First off, if I'm making an independent film where an actor has any time to even actually sit down in a trailer long enough to like feel the effects from it, something's probably not going right on set, because you usually don't have enough time to like sit down and do things. It's really like a marathon. I mean, most of the movies I make will make in anywhere from 14 to 22 days. Maybe if lucky, if a budget is a little bit higher, maybe we could get in the 25 to 30-day world. But most movies around that are anywhere from, like, I think the quickest movie I made was in 14 days.
Wow.
And that's not a lot of time.
That isn't a lot of time. And it just
No,
feels like this marathon that you're
it
trying to
is.
rush through. But
Hmm.
that's just the filming, right? That's not
That's
after.
just the filming.
Got it. Okay.
Just the filming. So just the filming. So I could be prepping any one of these movies from 6 months to 6 years trying to put it together and trying to just raise enough money for that smaller movie, a small budget movie. I don't mean the movie smaller. Someone the other day mentioned something like, oh, you make these small movies. I'm like, well, whatever screen you watch the film I make on, or whether you watch a big movie on, the screen's the same size. Audiences only see what's in front of the camera.
Hmm.
And no, I normally don't have more than one camera. And I don't, that square that we all look at, it's just a square.
It just proves this idea that if you have this great idea, if you have this beautiful story that's well written, and you bring in the right actors, that big budget really doesn't matter if you do
No,
it right.
I mean, it matters for the rest of the year when I'm like trying to pay my health insurance or something. That's when I really think about it. But on a like quality control basis, I don't associate necessarily quality with budget level. There are some scripts that I read that's be like, you know what? I see a really independent, raw version of this material that we can do away from all of the hoopla. but sometimes you need the hoopla.
Hoopla not
Um,
always a bad thing.
no, it's not. I will happily jump in the circus that's that big. That's fine. I can handle it. I can do it. I just think in these days that you shouldn't always feel limited by it or not be afraid to try just because you don't have a lot of money. I think that that's when people and artists are self-editing and self-silencing themselves because they think, oh, if I don't have all these big things, then I'm not going to do anything quote unquote good or worthy, or the worth of your material is not based on your budget size. I mean, to me it's about what kind of stories are you telling and how are you making people feel when they watch them, and to me that's priceless.
You had a big change when you went from rural North Carolina to New York,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
now you've returned.
Mm-hmm.
How has that transition gone for you?
I didn't plan on returning. It just kind of happened. So I was in 2015, I was extremely exhausted, overworked. My tank was beyond empty. And it was like February and nothing much was going on. That's a slower time in the industry. So I thought, oh, I'll just come back home and take a month off. I just never left because I wound up getting an invitation to adjunct at the School of the Arts here, which led to a corporate, interesting, lucrative job at Lowe's Hardware, which was very interesting to me to take what I knew about making movies and apply it to corporate video content in a hardware space. Never would have thought when I had come home in 2015 that within 2 years I'd be working at a Fortune 40 company at all, but I did. And it's during that time that I got other movies made and I saw that I could do what I wanted to do and I didn't have to be in New York. And for a long period of time, I kept my apartment in New York. But then there comes a time where like you got to give it up. You can't do that forever. And so I made the decision. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I just gave up my apartment. I left New York. I like to at least say I decided to leave. It's not like it kicked me out.
Well, it's always best when it's on our terms.
I do luckily get to go. I usually go back once or twice a year. It still feels like a part of me is there. I don't mind the solitude. I feel like I can focus a little bit more on myself a little bit for good and for bad. Sometimes I wish I wasn't.
So, do those
So,
sorts of feelings start to play into because you've moved into writing? So,
mm-hmm.
do those emotions, do those feelings, do those moments come out in your writing for other films?
I think so. I think even more so than place is just I've gotten older. So I've been away from New York almost the amount of time that I lived there, which was like a revelation to me the other day. It's like, oh shit, I've been gone for almost 10 years. That's a big milestone. And so for me, it's like I think giving myself permission to just be myself and put myself out there. I feel a little bit more confident doing that now. Maybe because I did live there and I did quote unquote make it slash survive. But I do feel that there is a bravery as I get older that I'm less concerned about what other people think I may should be doing or what I'm best suited to do. And I'm just going to do what I want.
You talked about how you've had these shifts in your career, in your life. And I think you're right that there's these things that come along that we make those
Mhm.
decisions as we get older
Mhm.
that are for our own
Hmm.
self.
And I think that's okay.
It has to be.
It has to be.
You made the comment that you're successful, and then you said it's not this big budget success.
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
always say define success, right?
Yeah.
You found accolades, you won
Sure.
awards, you
Hmm.
had a career that was fulfilling, and then that led you to this
Yeah.
moment of writing this amazing movie that I
Thank
just
you.
watched a few weeks
Hmm.
ago and was
Hmm.
captivated by. When you were writing You and I, what was going on? What brought you to this moment?
I felt like I had nothing to lose because I had lost so much. It was during the pandemic. I truly thought my career was over. done. I did not think I would be able to make another movie. Trying to get things financed, not happening. I was somewhat of a newlywed at the time and lots of life changes, moved to a new city, but I found myself, I was alone, didn't have like a huge circle around me, so I found myself alone. Also went through some health issues. Like I didn't know what was wrong with me. Hair falling out, rapid weight gain, all these things that a lot of women in their late 30s, early 40s go through. And I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. I was so happy to at least have an answer of like, awesome, I know what's wrong with me, because I'd go to so many doctors and they'd say, oh, just drink water and walk. I mean, that's like when you're a woman, they're like, oh, do you walk enough? Do you get enough exercise? Do you live a stressful life? You should reduce your stress, do yoga, walk. I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, this can't just be like, I get that all those things are good. What human shouldn't do those things? But I don't think it's normal that, clumps of my hair should just fall out and that I just randomly can't keep my head up and fall asleep when I'm someone that's like worked on like 60 to 80 hours a week type of person. And now I can barely keep my eyes open until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I went through all these things where, I was losing my health, losing a lot of things that I thought I'd worked so hard to build. And so I thought, you know what? If I'm going to go out, it's a very common theme, I'm going to do it on my own terms. So I'm just going to swing for the fences. So I've spent 15 years learning how to do all this movie making. I know how to do it. I know how to make a movie. I know how to make a movie economically. I know what type of movie should be made, that I can do it like this responsibly. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it for myself. And that's what I did. I just re-engineered. I worked backwards from how I knew that ultimately we would physically have to make the movie. But then the most important thing is that I pretty much did everything that I've been telling my students to do. In the South, you got to like walk the walk and talk the talk. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to preach it to all these students that I teach to do these things, I'm going to do it too. So the first step was to write something from the heart. One thing that I'm sadly I don't want to say sadly, because to me, I'm proud of scars and things that I've carried through my life. I've been through a lot of loss and things. So I wanted to kind of write a film about someone that remembers a time when they felt seen and when things felt hopeful and optimistic, even though at the time it may have not have felt that way. Hindsight's kind of 2020 sometimes. I think as I got older, I too realized how complex life actually can be for people. And I think for a long period of my time, I was always looking at life by situations. If I can get myself in this situation where I have this type of income, this type of house, this type of car, and build my life into this specific situation, this is what life's about. But along the way, you really learn that life is not those things at all. And your life is lived interacting with people. What you do, what you don't do, just as much as what you do. And I'm someone that's lived through a lot of regret of things that I didn't do. I think just at this point in my life, I'd turned 40, and I think there's something just clicked where, like, when the world shut down, I just kind of woke up to what all I wanted to be. And I knew this was maybe the one chance to do it. So I wanted to try it. And at least I would know that I gave myself that one thing. If I never got to do it again, I can at least say, well, everything I worked for was not for naught. I took what I learned and I applied it. I did something I wanted to do.
You jumped right into the deep end. Writer,
Yes.
director, producer,
Mm-hmm.
editor,
Mm-hmm.
main
Mm-hmm.
actor in,
Mm-hmm.
a leading role in this film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
did you pull that off?
I guess just crazy, but I do think when you do something from such a place of necessity and such a place of determination and emotional necessity, that it just felt natural. Like I couldn't imagine making this movie any other way. I don't think it would have been the movie that it is if I would have approached it in a different way. It's such an intimate story. So much of it, like I'm at peace with it now. I was not very comfortable at first. Being in this film and making this film and doing what I've done has been a bit therapeutic in a sense of like maybe healing old wounds of opportunities and things undone or unsaid, and being able to put yourself out there after being so much like in the background of life. And, pretty much as a producer, people pleaser type person, I was happy if everyone else was happy. And that's really how I determined that. So it was amazing to like give myself the opportunity to experience all these things that made me happy, which was writing, directing, acting just felt natural. Like I don't know that I appreciate all the kind things people say about my performance in the film, but so much of it is just like it was just a blur to me. Like I do feel like I understand and like what a gift it is as an actor to be in the moment. I hope that everyone can experience that at least once in their life, to like just totally be present in a moment, and that's special.
Well, and there was a rawness to your performance. Like,
Thank you.
as I was watching it, I was so drawn in to the visuals that
Mm,
stirred these emotions for me, and it
yeah.
was all over the board. So the movie we're talking about is You and I,
Mhm.
and this has been the official selection at American Film Festival, Nashville Film Festival, New Orleans Film Festival, River Run International Film Festival.
That's
That's pretty.
awesome.
Congratulations. And this is a full-length feature film. This
Yep.
is
Mhm.
not a short.
Nope.
And you produced this entire thing. And
Hmm.
am I correct? It was 10 days shooting, 14 days shooting.
14, 14, 14. Hmm.
Wow.
I wrote it in 10 days.
I was captivated watching it. It drew me in. And when I went back to do some research and I was watching the trailer, I
Hmm.
was so impressed that the choices were made not to have dialogue on the trailer.
Oh, thank you.
I feel that that rawness, that those emotions, that moment that you were trying to draw us into as a writer and a director absolutely gets hit and shown in that trailer. And it just
Mm.
explodes when you get to watch it on the screen.
Oh, thank you. I edited that trailer. I had not seen that many trailers in my life that didn't have words. But one thing I learned so many things from my co-star and colleagues in life. And, show don't tell. I don't think we should underestimate an audience. If the emotion is that palpable and raw, people will feel it. You don't have to hit them over the head with it. One thing I never wanted to do, and I'm proud that everyone involved didn't either, is that I never underestimated my audience at all. To sit in moments, long takes, not super cutty. I didn't feel the need to speed through moments of silence. I mean, this is life. That's what happens in life. To be honest, some of my most like prized moments in life is sometimes when people just sat there and not said anything.
Well, and I think that's where the power that
Hmm.
I was getting in my emotions, because I was
Hmm.
given time to think, I was given time to equate my own experiences into what I'm watching. Really was a great watch. I
Thank
so
you.
enjoyed it. I want to ask the question because everyone's
Sure.
always, okay, what's the genre? Do you see this as a love story? Do you see this as a drama? How do you kind of
I
categorize
call
this?
it I call it a romance or a romantic drama if I have to fill out forms for places, which I often do with film festivals and different things. It's like, oh, what genre are you? I always check romance, drama, romantic drama. A dear colleague said, Summer, you're just going to have to suck it up and own the fact you made a steamy love story. And I said, okay, sure, what else? I'll own it. But yeah, I definitely think it's a love story, 1,000%. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity to watch the relationships between all of these characters get woven together as we start to find out pieces of history. And
Hmm.
it was so beautifully captured. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. When you have this out in the world now, which everyone, you can check the show notes. It's streaming
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon, Apple
Mm-hmm.
TV Plus, it's on
Mm-hmm.
Vimeo,
Mm-hmm.
Fandango. How does that feel?
A bit of relief, to be honest with you. It feels like I've sent my child off to college and now it's got to make a life for itself. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, it's a little depressing because I worry, will it get seen? Will people find it? You talked about awards. We launched online December 3rd, which was, right at the height of all the award seasons and major festivals releasing things. And it's been really hard to get any publicity for the film, press outlets and people passing on it, telling me it's too small for them or they're just too busy here, that it can be disheartening. So sometimes it gets depressing in those ways, but I'm also really proud that I do feel like it's not that I've closed a book, but I definitely feel like I've stopped. I'm able to start a new chapter of my life now that this is out there in the world. It's done what I wanted it to do, by that I mean I finished it and it's available for the world to see if they find it. So now it's no longer mine, it's other people's. Again, I think sometimes you love it, sometimes you got to let it go. It is so personal to me, and I have put so much of my life, work, time, money into the film. Now it's got to be its own thing, and I can't really keep thinking of it as mine anymore. It's not mine. It's the world's, hopefully to enjoy, maybe.
Well, and hopefully we can get more people to find this because
I hope so.
it is really worthy of watching.
Thank
Now,
you.
you have turned another chapter. This is behind
Mm-hmm.
you. Does that mean
Mm-hmm.
you'll make more film?
I hope so. I would like to. I would love to. I also feel confident that I'm capable of doing it. It's not just like I've done it, but like, when you make a movie, it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot emotionally. It's a lot just in general. But I at least feel I know what I'm capable of doing. And I've accepted that I can't always control whether I'll be able to keep doing it. And I have to be okay with that. This is not a job where you can just apply online and always get like, you got the job, you can make the movie. It's not like that. Like, you got to raise the money, you got to get the actors attached, you got to write the script. Like, all these things have to perfectly line up for you to just even have the opportunity to make the film. And I don't take that for granted. And I know how special that is. And I'll always be grateful that I got to do that. And I will probably feel even beyond grateful if I get to do it again, like to be able to do it twice in life or three times. Like, I have no idea how it would feel. Like, you see people that have made like 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 movies, like that this gets to be their livelihood every day. I would love to know what it's like to sustain myself as a filmmaker and that I don't have to wake up in the morning and worry about how am I going to pay for my health insurance? How am I going to pay for groceries? Can I afford my phone bill? Can I buy a house? I would love to know that I don't have to worry about those things because I can sustain myself as an artist, but I don't necessarily know that that's in my purview anytime soon, that I get to think that way unless I get lucky.
Well, and I sort of feel that you're already lucky. You've been able to tell
I
this
am.
story. And I
Hmm.
think that, talking with you, you really exude this excitement. It
Hmm.
feels that you're happy with this place right now.
I'm happy with the film. I made the film that I wanted to make. And as a producer, usually at the end of every film, that's the one question I ask a director, and that will determine to me if we were successful or not. Did the director make the film they wanted to make? And I know that I'm able to say without a shadow of a doubt, I made the film that I wanted to make. The film is of the vision and voice that I wanted to share. It's out there, and I'm very proud of myself for doing it. It hasn't been easy. I've lost a lot in the process of making this film, and so that's hard to deal with as well. When you create something that's so beautiful and that you're proud of, but you also are creating it during a time where, I did go through all these health obstacles. Sadly, no longer married, and parents are aging and there's so many like real life things around me that just put in perspective to me. Like I put so much weight on whether, is this film gonna like save my career per se? I thought I'd never make a movie again. And, I put so much weight on the film saving my career when in reality it just kind of saved myself. I got to be something.
That's absolutely wonderful. And it does come
Mhm.
through in this film. Summer, thank you so much for spending
Yeah.
some time with me today. This has been exciting. I was looking forward to this conversation. I will make sure that for the audience, all of the links will be out in the
Oh,
show
cool.
notes. And absolutely, everybody, take a chance, especially this month of February. Give yourself a treat. Watch this movie. It really is beautifully filmed. And
Oh.
Summer, you have done an amazing job. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. It's a great like February Valentine's Day thing, Better to think about love and past love and the what ifs and, all that in between.
Yes. Thank you again, Summer. I look
Of
forward to
course,
talking
thank
again
you.
soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this insightful conversation with Summer Shelton. Her journey from North Carolina to the world of independent filmmaking is a testament to perseverance and passion. You and I is a film that proves big stories can be told with small budgets, and Summer's work continues to push the boundaries of storytelling. You can follow Summer's work and stay updated on You and I by checking out the links in the episode description. You and I is currently streaming on Apple TV+, Amazon, Vimeo, and Fandango. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review Lattes Art on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps more listeners discover these conversations. And if you haven't already, hit that follow or subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You can also connect with us on social media for behind-the-scenes content, episode updates, and more discussions about art, creativity, and storytelling. Find all the links in the episode description. Until next time, keep creating, keep questioning, and as always, stay inspired. See you in the next episode.